Hi, folks, and welcome back to another supplemental episode of the Star Wars Library today, where Star Wars is in print in forms. And today, I want to follow kind of what I did with Heart of the Jedi, but to talk about another unpublished EU book that, again, is kind of like Heart of the Jedi. So it's another EU book or story that coming out around this time, or it definitely or originally was going to be, and it actually didn't see the light of day until about 2022, 2021. So at least more so than it already was. And this was by Tom Veitch, and it's called Lightsider. Now, Lightsider was going to be a novella that Mr. Veitch pitched to publish, I believe, to Bantam at the time, basically to do a lot of the connecting dots between Dark Empire 1 and 2. And I remember thinking, like, connecting dots? Like, what are you talking about? Well, then it was kind of starting to remember, like, oh, yeah, there were kind of some abrupt things with Dark Empire 2 in comparison to the first one. For example, Cedrus, I remember the first time I read it, Dark Empire 2, it's like, okay, Cedrus just shows up. He's a bad guy now that we're focusing on. And then Luke has a buddy, Cam Solzar, is suddenly here. It's like, oh, okay, these people are here now. And so it was a little bit abrupt, from what I remember. And so when I read or found out that there was going to be a story, it was kind of a surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one. But then I was bummed to find that it was not published. It was not, and I was told that it wasn't even written. And Dave Dorman, who is going to do the illustrations in it, similar to the Dark Forces novellas, which we'll get to eventually in our chronology, where it was kind of a novella of 60, 70-some page book, and it was going to have, like a couple times have full page illustrations. And if Dave Dorman's doing it, oh my gosh, you knew it was going to be great. But unfortunately, even though this was approved by George Lucas, and I believe it was actually read by Mr. Lucas as well, the powers that be, Lucasfilm and Bantam and all that, were like, nope, we're not going to do it. And so it kind of created a lot of bad blood between Mr. Veitch and Dark Horse and Star Wars Publishing, to the point where he pretty much didn't want to work for them anymore. He didn't, Kevin J. Anderson finished Tales of the Jedi, and then his final Dark Empire story, which is which we'll eventually talk about, Empire's End, was shortened down to 2 issues. So that's kind of where we were there. So this story was basically going to, like I said, going to connect those dots, and we never got it. Well, some people, and some of you might know some of these people, but some people somehow magically had this book or had this story. And some people even had it in plain sight when they would do posts on YouTube or whatnot. And I eventually got my hands on a copy in PDF form as well. And recently, not very recently, but recently, I actually had that converted into a physical hardback book that is now on my shelf, and here in a physical version. There is a PDF that is out there. It's starting to become more readily available. There are some EU fans out there that also have some like PDF of covers and stuff. So if you want to make your own personal copy, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to help you out. But yeah, so this was one that a lot of these people were sworn to secrecy. They couldn't talk about it. And then once Mr. Veitch sadly passed away, that was then when it was okay to kind of come out and start talking about it and reveal. There's some stuff about it on the expanduniverse.com. There's stuff on YouTube. So if you want to go, again, get more history on it, you can. But basically, what Lightsider does is it tells the story of Luke meeting Cam Salazar, and basically bringing him back. He kind of gets a little bit corrupted to the dark side, and so he brings him back to the light side through a game of Lightsider, or the Lightsider game. And so basically it also introduces a lot of things and characters that we see in Dark Empire 2, so then it's a much better transition between Dark Empire 1 and Dark Empire 2. So that's kind of where we're at with Lightsider. So is it a good read? I liked it. I mean, I like Tom Veitch's writing. I like his stories. It's a good read. It's not long. It's only like 60 pages. So it's not a crazy read if you do want to go through it. But yeah, it's a good read. It definitely reads well, and if you're reading it in chronological order, I think you're going to have, especially for like the first time, I definitely recommend maybe checking this out too, because it's going to make Dark Empire 2 a lot more like, oh yeah, that's Cam, that's Cedrus, whatever. So just something to keep in mind. But is this an essential read? It's hard to say. I do think it's good, and I do think it's worth checking out. The problem is that it's out there. It's not as readily available as Heart of the Jedi, but it is available, so you can get it, and you can read it. And is it good? Yeah, it's good. But I mean, is it absolutely essential? I mean, we've had no Lightsider for a long time, so I don't think it's super essential. But I do think you'll get a lot out of it, especially if it's your first time reading. I would highly recommend reading this before Dark Empire 2 if you can. But if you're a completist, it's cool to have. Again, this was never officially published, but to me, this is canon because it was written for it. And again, it reads well. I like the idea of it being a novella. So yeah, if you can get your hands on it, I would definitely do that. And it's another cool addition to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. So I was very thankful to have this, and definitely want to throw it in here in our chronology as a supplement since it was unpublished. But I do think that it is worth having, and I do think it's worth checking out. But is it absolutely essential? No. But I think it's still really good. So anyways, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time with another episode of the Star Wars Library.